Ethan walked through the streets of Nalara Prime, the alien city buzzing with life and noise. Towering buildings glimmered in colors he had never seen before, their walls alive with moving patterns and lights. The air was thick with scents of spices, fuel, and something sweet he could not name. All around him, aliens of every shape and size moved through the market, shouting, bargaining, or laughing. Some had 4 arms, others glided instead of walking. To a human, the scene could have been overwhelming, but Ethan walked calmly, his dark eyes scanning the stalls with quiet purpose. He was looking for one thing, though he did not know exactly what it would be. The market had everything a traveler could want: food, rare minerals, tools, and even live animals. But in a small, shadowed corner behind crates and worn cloths, he found it. A small cage with a girl inside. She had silver skin that shimmered faintly under the artificial lights, and her eyes were wide and fearful. Around her neck was a collar with a small tag, which read in the common galactic language, "Love Slave, for sale." Ethan's heart did not skip a beat, but he felt a strange tightness in his chest. He had never seen anything like her before. Other humans might have hesitated or looked away, but he approached the trader, a tall alien with sharp horns and green scales who was laughing with another customer. "Is this one for sale?" Ethan asked calmly. His voice was quiet but firm. The trader's eyes narrowed. "Yes," he said, "but she is not cheap. Many have tried to buy her, yet she has refused all commands. She is special." Ethan nodded slowly, reaching into his bag. "I want to buy her. All of her." The trader laughed, showing sharp teeth. "A human? You think you can handle her? Very well. 10,000 credits, deal." Ethan counted the credits carefully, then handed them over. The trader barked an alien laugh and unlocked the cage. As the door swung open, the girl froze. She did not move. Her large eyes stared at Ethan, fear mixing with confusion. "You are free," Ethan said simply. The words barely registered at first. Free? She did not understand. No one had ever said that to her before. All her life she had been bought, sold, used, and commanded. She had been trained to obey without question. Now a human was standing in front of her, holding out his hand, expecting nothing. I have to," she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. "No," Ethan said gently. "You don't have to do anything. You are not mine to command. You can come with me or not. It is your choice." For a moment she could not move. Her mind struggled to understand. No one had ever spoken to her like this. Humans were strange in her experience, weak and unremarkable. But this one, he was calm, confident, and patient. Something about him made her feel safe. Slowly she stepped forward. Ethan held the cage door open and she hesitated on the threshold. Finally she placed one hand on his, trembling. I will come," she whispered. The trader scowled. "Foolish human. She is not yours. She will never be yours. Take her and see if you survive." Ethan ignored the taunt. He guided her toward his ship. A small freighter docked nearby. On the way, she kept her distance, her eyes darting around nervously. He did not touch her. He did not demand anything. He only walked beside her, silent but steady, a presence that made her realize she was no longer alone. Once they reached the ship, he led her inside and offered her food. She had never eaten like this before. The small tray he provided was filled with nutrients that were safe and familiar to her species. She sat, unsure what to do, her tail curling nervously under her chair. "You don't have to eat if you don't want to," Ethan said, sitting across from her. "But it's better than nothing." She stared at him, confusion and curiosity mixing in her gaze. Why do you treat me like this?" "No one has ever." She stopped, unable to finish. "Because you are not property," Ethan said simply. "No one should ever be owned by another. You are free. That is all that matters to me." The words sank into her mind slowly. Free. She had never been free. Her entire life had been dictated by others. Now someone was offering her a choice. The thought made her chest ache with an unfamiliar warmth. For the next few days she followed him around the ship, curious about his life and the technology he worked with. Ethan was an engineer, fixing and upgrading systems with careful hands. He explained his work to her, showing her how engines functioned, how energy flowed through circuits, and how life on a ship required balance and care. She watched him with fascination, never daring to interrupt, yet feeling drawn to his calm confidence. Slowly, she began to speak more. "What is your name?" she asked one evening. as they watched the stars through the ship's viewing window. "Ethan," he replied. "And yours?" "Lyra," she said softly. I have never had a name that belonged to me." "You do now," Ethan said gently. "Lyra, that is your name, your life, your choice." She repeated it quietly, testing the sound on her tongue. It felt strange and yet right. She felt a small spark of joy she could not name. For the first time she realized that a human could treat her with respect, with care, with something she had only ever imagined in dreams. Days turned into a week, and Lyra began helping around the ship. She cleaned, cooked, and even assisted with minor repairs. But she did it out of habit, not obligation. Ethan never commanded her. He never asked for more than she was willing to give. Slowly, she began to understand the concept of choice, of freedom, of respect. One evening, a storm of meteors passed near the ship. The engines groaned under the pressure, and Ethan worked tirelessly to stabilize the vessel. Lyra watched him, her heart pounding. For the first time, she wanted to protect someone else. Using her empathic abilities, she sensed the emotions of nearby objects, the violent energy of the meteors, the pressure on the engines. She focused, directing her energy to calm the systems, helping Ethan in ways she could not explain. When the storm passed, Ethan looked at her with quiet admiration. "You helped," he said simply. "You did not have to, but you did." Lyra felt her chest swell with an unfamiliar pride. No one had ever appreciated her before. No one had ever seen her as more than property. Yet here she was, standing beside a human, recognized as her own person, her own being. That night she lay awake in the small cabin Ethan had prepared for her. She stared at the ceiling, thinking of the markets she had escaped, the collars, the chains, and the endless fear. She had been sold, bought, and used by countless strangers. Yet now she was free, truly free, and the thought made her eyes fill with tears. Not sadness, but a strange, trembling happiness. She remembered the first moment she had touched Ethan's hand. How steady it had felt, how calm and safe. She had expected anger, commands, or coldness. Instead, she had found patience and understanding. The contrast to her old life was so sharp that it almost made her dizzy. For the first time, Lyra allowed herself to imagine a future where she was not a tool or a slave, but someone who could choose, someone who could feel, someone who could live. The idea was terrifying but exciting. Ethan slept nearby, unaware of the thoughts running through her mind. Yet his presence comforted her. She did not understand fully why, but she trusted him. In a world that had never given her a reason to trust anyone, that was something extraordinary. Morning came, and with it, the routine of the ship. Lyra assisted Ethan, not because she had to, but because she wanted to learn. Each task, each small success reinforced her sense of self. She realized that freedom was not just the absence of chains. It was the chance to make mistakes, to try, to learn, and to grow. By the time they approached the outskirts of the next star system, Lyra had begun to smile more often. Small things, an engine humming correctly, a meal prepared well, a quiet conversation, brought her unexpected joy. She could feel her old fears slowly melting, replaced by curiosity, excitement, and a strange, new form of hope. When Ethan looked at her one evening, while checking the ship's instruments, she realized she no longer feared him. She no longer felt like a tool or a possession. She felt alive, and more than that, she felt connected. The markets had once sold her as an object. Traders had laughed at her. Other humans would have looked away, but this one human had done something no one else had. He had treated her with respect. He had given her freedom, and in doing so, he had given her something far more precious. The first taste of trust, friendship, and perhaps even something that could grow into love. Lyra did not yet know what the future held, but she no longer dreaded it. For the first time in her life, she was not waiting for someone to command her. She was choosing to stay. She whispered softly to herself as she watched the stars. Maybe this is what freedom feels like. Days passed aboard the Aurora Dawn, and Lyra slowly settled into life on the ship. She no longer moved with the hesitancy of a prisoner. She walked confidently, explored freely, and even began to joke quietly with Ethan when he wasn't too busy with repairs. Her silver skin shimmered faintly under the ship's lights, and her eyes, once wide with fear, now glimmered with curiosity. Ethan watched her carefully, noticing every small change. He had saved her, But it was clear she was saving herself in ways he could not interfere with. One morning, the ship's sensors picked up a cluster of meteors ahead. Ethan frowned and began calculations to adjust the ship's trajectory. Lyra hovered nearby, studying him silently. "I can help," she said softly. "You don't need to," Ethan replied without looking up. "This is my job." "I want to," Lyra insisted, her voice firm but gentle. She had learned to assert herself without fear, and it surprised even her. Ethan finally glanced at her, his dark eyes thoughtful. "All right," he said. "Watch carefully and I'll guide you." For the first time, Lyra worked beside him during a real emergency. She followed his instructions, her hands moving confidently over the ship's panels. When a small meteor grazed the hull, she channeled her empathic energy to stabilize the ship's systems, focusing as Ethan had shown her. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and yet for the first time she felt exhilaration instead of fear. When the danger passed, Ethan gave her a rare smile. "You did well," he said simply. Lyra felt her chest swell with pride. No one had ever praised her for anything except obedience before. Now she was being recognized as capable, independent, and valuable. Not a slave, not property. She realized that freedom was not just being unchained. It was being trusted and respected. As the ship continued its journey through uncharted systems, Lyra began to understand more about human life. Ethan shared stories of Earth, of oceans and forests, of cities and mountains. Lyra listened with fascination. Her species had always lived under strict rules and control, but humans seemed to thrive in chaos and freedom. They created, they explored, they cared for one another in ways Lyra had never imagined. One evening, as the twin suns of a distant planet sat outside the cockpit window, Ethan glanced at her. "Do you ever miss your home?" he asked quietly. Lyra paused. Memories of the markets, the cages, and the endless trades flitted through her mind. She shook her head slowly. I don't know what home is anymore," she admitted. "I never had one that felt safe." Ethan nodded, understanding. "Then make this your home," he said. "Not because I say so, but because you want to." Those words sank deep into her heart. Make this her home. She had spent so long waiting for someone to tell her what to do, where to go, who to be. Now a human was asking her to decide for herself. And for the first time she felt powerful. She could choose. Their peace was disrupted one day when the ship was attacked by space pirates. Lyra was in the cargo bay studying some tools when the alarms blared. Red lights flashed and the hull trembled under the impact of enemy fire. Ethan shouted instructions, rushing to the control panel, but the attackers were fast and ruthless. Without thinking, Lyra ran to him. She had never been in combat before, but she could feel the fear and aggression radiating from the pirates. She reached out, channeling her empathic energy. The pirates froze, their anger turning into panic as their own fear magnified. The energy surged through the corridor and the attackers fled in confusion, leaving the ship unharmed. Ethan stared at her, astonished. "Lyra, that was incredible," he said, his voice a mixture of awe and relief. She looked at him, breathing heavily. I didn't want anyone to get hurt," she said. "Especially not you." Ethan shook his head slowly, a smile touching his lips. "You saved me. Again. And this time you didn't just follow orders, you made your own choice." The event changed something between them. Lyra no longer felt like an observer of Ethan's life. She felt like a partner. She understood that freedom was not just about being unchained, but about being trusted to act when it mattered. Ethan trusted her instincts, and she had proven herself. In the days that followed, they continued to explore new star systems, gather resources, and repair the ship. Lyra learned quickly, mastering skills she had never thought possible. She repaired small circuits, navigated minor star charts, and even helped Ethan optimize the engines. The ship ran smoother, faster, and safer than ever before, thanks to her. One quiet evening, as they floated near a small moon, Lyra looked out at the stars. Ethan joined her, sitting silently beside her. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she turned to him. "Ethan, why did you save me? Why did you buy me and not treat me like everyone else?" Ethan's eyes softened. "Because no one deserves to be treated as property. You are alive. You are strong. You are capable. And I saw someone worth protecting." Her silver eyes glistened. She had never felt seen like this before, not as a tool, not as a commodity, but as a being. Her chest tightened with a strange warmth, one she had not expected to feel so deeply. I've never had anyone say that to me, she admitted. You will hear it often from now on, Ethan replied gently. Because it's true. The bond between them deepened with each passing day. Lyra no longer feared the world. She wanted to face it with Ethan. She learned about human laughter, patience, and kindness, realizing that life could be more than survival. It could be joy. And Ethan in turn began to rely on her not just for help but for companionship. He saw her strength, her intelligence, and her courage, qualities that no one had ever valued before. Their journey eventually took them near a neutral trading planet, where they needed supplies. Lyra accompanied Ethan to the market, but this time she walked confidently, head held high. Traders and shoppers stared at her silver skin and glowing eyes, but she no longer felt fear. She was no longer a slave or a commodity. She was Lyra, a being who had chosen her own path. Ethan purchased what they needed, and together they returned to the ship. On the way, Lyra saw children of her species playing and laughing. She felt a pang in her chest, an echo of a life she could have had, but it was tempered by the happiness she now carried. She had been sold as an object, traded and feared, yet here she was, free, respected, and alive. Back on the ship, she looked at Ethan and smiled. I think I understand now, she said. Freedom is not just being unchained. It is being seen, being trusted, and being able to make choices that matter. Ethan nodded. Exactly. And no one can take that from you, Lyra. Not now, not ever. That night, they watched the stars together, the vastness of space stretching endlessly before them. Lyra leaned slightly against Ethan, feeling the quiet strength of his presence. For the first time, she did not feel small, scared, or powerless. She felt alive, connected, and capable of anything. As the aurora dawn sailed smoothly through the star systems, Lyra whispered to herself, a small smile on her lips. I am free, and I am not alone. The markets that had once sold her as a commodity, the chains that had bound her, and the people who had laughed at her fate seemed like memories from another life. She had escaped them, not just physically, but in heart and mind. She had found something far greater than freedom. She had found respect, trust, and the first glimmer of love. And as the ship continued on its endless journey, Lyra realized that she no longer wanted to run. She had found her place beside Ethan, not as a servant, not as a slave, but as a partner, someone who mattered, someone who belonged. The universe was vast, dangerous, and full of uncertainty, but Lyra no longer feared it. She had chosen her path, her life, and herself, and for the first time in her existence she felt truly alive, radiant, and unstoppable. As she looked at Ethan, who was adjusting the controls with his usual calm precision, she felt a warmth in her chest that she could not name. It was trust, companionship, and the quiet beginnings of something deeper, something human, something real. And in that moment she understood fully that the gift Ethan had given her was not just freedom, but life itself. No one had ever believed in her. No one had ever seen her worth. But Ethan had. And now, Lyra knew that whatever challenges lay ahead in the stars, she would face them not as a slave, not as a tool, but as herself, Lyra, free, strong, and unafraid. And with that knowledge, she closed her eyes for the first time in years, feeling the gentle hum of the ship beneath her, the stars outside the window, and the quiet, unwavering presence of a human who had changed her life forever. The journey was far from over, but for the first time, Lyra was ready. She was free, and she was finally alive.